This whole notion of work-life balance is total bullshit. Like, as if there are two separate things. You're alive the whole way through. We create these weird constructs and constrain ourselves to, like, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, lunch at noon, 30-minute 1-hour meetings. That's not reality. Like, I just want to blow through that and just say, no, you can design whatever it is that you want to design, and all of it is life.
Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. This season is all about micro challenges as a training plan for confidence. And this week's challenge is all about most improved player. So I can't imagine a better guest than my guest today, Carla Piñeyro Sublett, to help us reflect on her life story and this particular challenge this week. Carla is a Fortune 100 executive turned executive coach, advisor, and podcaster. She spent her career over the last few decades leading global teams at companies like IBM, NI, and Dell. She's now the host of Let's Go There, where she explores what it means to bring her whole self into leadership and life. She's known for blending her business acumen with personal authenticity and creates spaces for conversations that are raw, real, and deeply human. She has hard-won wisdom about growth, resilience, and leading with purpose. I can't thank her enough for joining us today to share her thoughts on what it means to be the most improved player. Let's listen in. Welcome to In Confidence, Carla. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, me too.
And shout out to our mutual friend, Lindsay Shookus, who is the ultimate connector.
Yeah, I love that woman. And she's all about lifting other women up. It's so cool.
Well, it was funny because she saw you, and I think the same day she texted me with a link to your bio and everything. She said, you have to have Carla on the podcast. Let me know when you're ready. And we followed up right away. So
Yeah,
I'm really happy this worked out.
She's so funny. She didn't even tell me she was doing that. She was like, by the way, I got you on a podcast.
Well, before we get into everything, we have a question that we start every episode with, which is, what are you most proud of from the past 12 months of your life? It can be personal, it can be professional. What are you most proud of?
Yeah, I don't know that I can claim this, but I'm going to try. It's personal, and it is that my two kids appear to be thriving right now. And they are 21 and 18, and we're officially empty nesters. And my daughter and son are just loving university and loving life right now. And I feel just so grateful for that. And I don't know that I can claim it as my accomplishment, but it just feels so good. It's their accomplishment, but I'm gonna try and claim a portion of it.
I love that. One of my friends who is a full-time parent, she says, there are no metrics for success when you're a parent, and you don't know if you've screwed up until it's too late. And so I allow you to claim that one because she always reminds me, she's like, there are no metrics by which you define success as a parent. You're
Yeah,
just every day hoping that they're happy and thriving. So that's an
yeah.
awesome
And you're
accomplishment.
kind of guaranteed to screw it up. So I also am very self-aware in that respect as well.
That you might get the phone call tomorrow that's like, Mom, I'm homesick, or I'm afraid of this test, or there's something
Totally.
coming.
Totally. But for now, it's just something that I'm just super happy about.
Oh, I love that. Well, we always also start with the question of tell our audience who you are and how you make a difference in the world.
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, I am a recovering tech executive, most recently the chief marketing officer of IBM, and I
Wow.
have done a very big career pivot in the last couple years. So I now coach CEOs and work on boards, and then I also am a trustee at the Aspen Institute. And all of the work that I do is in service of humanity. I feel very strongly about that, and I feel very called to that, especially right now.
Can you say more about what that means to be in the service of humanity?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. So being a former tech executive, well, I should probably say I still am because I serve on several tech boards. But my goal right now is to be a part of shepherding us into this new era with
Mhm.
AI. And I believe that human connection has never been more important and more valuable. And then the other part of the work that I do with the Aspen Institute, from my perspective, is all about helping depolarize our world and keeping us in dialogue with one another and helping disrupt the toxicity that we're seeing in leadership and in our world right now. And so the Aspen Institute was formed, Lisa. I don't know how much you know about it, but to help us avoid World War III. And the goal, it was formed just after World War II. And the goal was really to convene people across geopolitical lines, across different viewpoints to help solve the world's most intractable problems. And so I feel really strongly about that as well in my work.
And I love that you're tackling something that's so relevant right now, which is AI and polarization. Those are meaty, big things standing in the way of society progressing. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing relative to AI? Because I'm deeply curious about this as
Yeah.
someone who's like in it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it sounds very grandiose. And let me just say that I'm not coming from a place of hubris. I'm just coming from a place of feeling extraordinarily called. And I think in terms of what I'm doing now, Lisa, it's being as involved as I possibly can be with CEOs and executives and companies that are transitioning to this new world of AI,
Mm,
whether
mm,
that's in the actual offering, in the actual product, or the way in which they work. And I think it's really important to have diverse points of view, women, people of color, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different geopolitical lines at the table when we're making some of these really, really important decisions. And I'm early days in it, and that I feel like we are early days in this era, and it's moving really quickly week by week. But the first and most important step that I'm taking is being as involved as I possibly can in this field.
And, one of the things that I think about, because we're a very small company, we have a small business, but for us, AI has made things so efficient.
Mhm.
I do fear, though, that there are some vendors and freelancers that we aren't using anymore because AI has essentially replaced that role on
Yeah,
our team. Are you thinking at all about displacement of the
yeah.
workforce?
Yeah, that's where the work with the Aspen Institute comes in. These both things are kind of balancing each other out as we look at policy and we look at transformation and what's happening in our world. I mean, make no bones about it. This is going to be one of the most disruptive things we've ever seen as a human race. But I'm also an optimist. So there's
Mm.
also a part of me that's like, what if it's not going to be about work anymore? What if work is going to be done for us? And then what are our lives about? So I think that we can't possibly imagine how our lives are going to change in the same way that people couldn't imagine how their lives were going to change with in the industrial era or
Mm.
with the advent of the personal computer or coming online with respect to the internet. So there are things that we can't even process right now that are going to change. And it is going to be a very disruptive transition. But the optimist in me says that if we have the right people at the table having the right conversations, that our lives could improve significantly.
Well, I'm comforted by the fact that you're at the table.
Oh,
So I'm so happy there's someone like you at the table making sure that this transition happens with, if not ease, at least with humanity at its core.
yeah.
You mentioned earlier your involvement with the Aspen Institute. I know you're a Henry Crown Fellow. And when you went through that process, is that where your podcast, Let's Go There, did that get birthed from that experience?
In a way, it came much later, but yes, absolutely. And if you listen to the podcast, there are a lot of Henry Crown Fellows and a lot of Aspen Institute Fellows that come on. But I would say, ever since I was a little girl, Lisa, I mean, the earliest voice I remember hearing in my head was, you have to do good, you have to help,
Mm,
you have to make an impact. And then being a part of the Aspen Institute and the Henry Crown Fellowship, it's very much about leaving this place better than we found it. And the podcast was born out of the fact that I started to grow concerned
mm,
about our workplace. And I felt like the way that we were working wasn't working for us anymore. And the conversations that I was having with CEOs around employee engagement, trying to get people back into the office, um, I started to really take note of the fact that, wow, the way we're leading people is so dated
mm.
and so masculine. And I don't mean that from a gender perspective. I actually mean that from an energetic perspective. I was very masculine in my career. And so I started to realize, wow, there's a better way. There's a better way to do this that's a lot more nurturing, a lot more thoughtful. And so the podcast was born out of my desire to shine a light on amazing heart-led leaders and change makers and artists that were doing life on their terms and were willing to have the conversation with me that they really hadn't had publicly around how they got there, how they were living their life, how they were making an impact in an effort to inspire others.
I love that. Can you maybe dive deep a little bit into this idea of you led in a masculine way and
Mm.
now you see other ways in which that can be done? Can you just double click on that thought?
Yeah, well, I was very armored up.
Hmm.
I was very much in my head. I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I'd cut myself off from my heart and I was pushing that down. I was all about business outcomes and super intense and hardcore. Um, but I started to realize as I set out to reconnect to my heart, which by the way was triggered by the Henry Crown Fellowship, as I started to reconnect to my heart, I realized that I was missing out on key pieces of information that actually
Hmm.
enabled me to be a better leader and drive better business outcomes. So I realized that that way of working, which quite frankly I was emulating after others, I realized it wasn't driving the best business outcomes. People weren't thriving under that leadership style. And I thought, wait a minute, the best outcomes I've ever seen in my career are when teams love one another and they're
Hmm.
in it together. And it made me really passionate about the fact that, wait, there's a different way to do this.
I love that. And can you give me some examples or some of the things that you changed about your style that led to good outcomes?
Yeah. The first and foremost is vulnerability.
Hmm.
And I started to speak my emotions in the workplace. So instead of like micromanaging my organization and really kind of being overbearing and starting to ask all this stuff and spin up all this work, I would say out loud, hey, I'm scared that we are missing some of these details. And I'm
Ooh.
worried that if we do that we're actually not going to hit the number or that we will be overcome by our competition and commoditized. I started to express myself. And what that enabled was a couple things. One, it enabled other people to express themselves,
Hmm.
and it created that safety. But what it also created in both my personal and professional life, Lisa, is it enabled people to show up for me. So it
Huh.
enabled my team to be like, "Oh, we got you. Okay, we see this. We got you. We've got this. We've got these details covered. Let us show you." Or, "Oh gosh, we didn't even consider that. Let's go figure it out and we'll come back to you." So it just created that was one of the first ways that I noticed it is just and then the other was not being afraid to express my love for people.
Ah.
And let me be clear, I'm not talking about being a pushover. I'm not talking about being overtly nice or saccharine. I'm talking about really truly loving the people in my organization. And that's always been a part of me in the sense that I have family from the people that I've worked, I have godchildren from the people from the places that I've worked. But this was a different level, Lisa. And what I
Hmm.
found was when I started to express how I felt about people, I noticed they started to express how they felt about me and each other. And it made the work so much more meaningful and fulfilling.
I'm really impressed that you would use the phrase "I'm scared" because I think as leaders we've been conditioned to not express fear. And so what that very specific phrase "I'm scared," did it scare you to say that?
Yeah, for sure. The first time, yeah. Because what I didn't want to do is create insecurity in my team.
Mm.
But I realized both as a parent and as a friend and as a executive, when you express something, it enables others to show up for you.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that you're picking on this, Lisa, because literally this has been the theme of the week in terms of the people that I coach. We have been talking about fear. It has come up over and over. And I think so often we are trained that that voice in the head is a bad thing and that fear is a bad thing. And I, was called fearless in the workplace.
Hmm.
And for a long time, white knuckled it, would just kind of power through. But once I got back in touch with my emotions, I realized, oh, wait a minute. This fear is just wisdom. It's just trying to call my attention to something.
Huh.
So if I actually will lean into it and name it, it's not that bad. And
Huh.
and it can inform me and everybody else. And then we can actually deal with it and deal and determine whether or not it's real or justified or not.
And I imagine it creates permission for people to come to you and say, "I'm scared about something," or "I'm
Yeah.
afraid." this, and you can be there for them because
Yeah,
you've expressed it first.
absolutely. And it is that kind of fear slash shame that creates toxic environments,
Hmm.
right? And so when people can't express how they're really feeling, that's when you start to see all the dysfunction. But if they can actually name it, then you can deal with it.
Got it. Did you feel like there was more openness in the workplace after you started to share your emotions?
1,000%. 1,000%, especially during COVID. Being able to name how difficult it was, um, being able to see how diverse and unique the experiences were, depending on where in the world somebody was and whether or not they were alone or with family or in a pod. Um, I think it was probably my superpower in a way
Mm.
during that
Mm.
time.
Well, Carla, I'm going to have to come back to you at some point. My next book is about the idea of trust.
Oh,
And there are a couple of components of trust. Most people think about reliability or congruence and essentially accountability and results and outcomes. And what we've found is it's really about openness and acceptance
mm.
that are the greatest drivers of building trust-based relationships. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to come back to you
Well,
for
I would
all your
love,
stories.
yeah, I'd love to have that conversation.
Well, I'm happy that the second thing you shared was about expressing love,
Mm.
because that is actually this week's theme on the podcast.
Oh,
I believe Claire and my team shared with you that season 3 of our podcast is a training plan. And every week, we actually introduce a micro moment for our listeners to take on. So we're going to reveal that at the beginning of the week. What is that micro moment? And then every Friday, we're going to have a guest on to talk about why that particular micro moment can make a difference in people's lives. And you are our very first one. You're challenge number 1
all
of the
right. I
entire
love it.
season. And our first micro moment is called Most Improved Player. And the theory is MVPs get the spotlight, but what truly builds lasting confidence is recognizing how you've improved.
Mm,
So maybe most improved player is the trophy moment we each want,
yeah.
because obviously the superstars always get recognized, but most improved player is about noticing invisible growth behind moments. It's an accessible practice of self-reflection for each of us to notice how we've gotten stronger, but then also for our leaders to perhaps reward improvement at times over just outcome and success. So this is you're a very appropriate person to talk to. And so let's just get started with, how have you personally gotten stronger, whether in the past week, 6 months, or a year? And is there a skill that you've built that you didn't have perhaps maybe a year ago?
Yeah. Well, I think the most significant was what we were just talking about, which was really reconnecting to my heart and
Mm.
reconnecting to my emotions. And that was a big unlock for me, both personally and professionally. And I think the other thing in particular that's most recent has been in coaching other people. I was very reluctant to do it. I'll be vulnerable with you for a second, Lisa.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, I'm not a coach. A coach is what people do when they are out of work, and they hang a shingle and suddenly they're a coach. And I just had a lot of resistance. I didn't market it, I didn't promote it, I didn't change my LinkedIn, and yet people were coming out of the woodwork and asking me to coach them. And I began to do it. And as I started to do it, I realized that I loved it and it was extremely fulfilling. And as I started to lean into it, I realized I was actually getting better. Not just better as a coach, but better as an executive because of what I was learning from them simultaneously and seeing in them and their improvement.
Okay, that is phenomenal, because I love that you're rewarding yourself for that, because I often liken it to being in a gym where it's like
Mhm. Yeah.
consistency over intensity. Like you start with a 2 pound weight that gets you strong enough to do the 5 pound weight, and then you get to the 10 pound weight and you can do more reps and you can do a heavier weight. So I love that through the process of you actually going out there and coaching,
Yeah.
you felt stronger
Oh,
in that.
absolutely. 1,000%.
What did it take for you to feel stronger in terms of your access to your emotions, and also becoming, it sounds like, more comfortable living in the skin of a coach? Like,
Yeah.
what did you actually do?
So, so it's almost, I'll answer the question in two ways. In terms
Okay.
of what it took for me to feel stronger in terms of accessing my emotions, is I had to get okay with heartbreak.
Oh.
So I realized that the thing that was standing in the way between me and what I was feeling was I was afraid of heartbreak.
Huh.
And it wasn't until I got okay with it that I realized it's not the heartbreak that hurts, it's the resistance of it. And that heartbreak is so fucking worth it. Because
Oh, wow.
if you let yourself, if you let your heart break open, you can love that much more. If you don't hold yourself back from it.
Can you share an example of that?
Oh, yeah. I actually have, I'll let you know the moment it happened. So I was at a Hoffman-like retreat with my coach. His name is Joe Hudson. And the name of the retreat at the time was called Groundbreakers. I think it has a different name now. I think it's called Masterclass. And we did an exercise around grief.
Hmm.
And, this was at the point where I was very resistant. And I walk down to the room and I see boxes of Kleenexes all around these yoga mats. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm not going to be good at this. And they lay us down and they start to take us through a meditation. And they're like, oh, by the way, when grief shows up, don't be surprised if another emotion bubbles up. And if anger bubbles up or something else bubbles up and you need some space, you can just go upstairs. No big deal. And we'll help you release whatever shows up. I should also add that I
Hmm.
really feared anger and avoided anger in all aspects of my life,
You getting angry or having people angry at you?
both.
Okay.
And so as the process started, lo and behold, the first thing that started to rise up in me was friggin' rage. And it caught me so off guard. I mean, I felt like I was like going to just like purge something. And so I found myself going upstairs. I did a major anger release. I was told I went on for 45 minutes. It felt like 2 seconds. And then I was brought back downstairs where I just suddenly felt my heart just break open. And and at that moment, I looked up, and one of my peers in the group, I saw him coming back into the room.
Excuse me.
That's okay. I suppose he had had an anger release as well. And he looked like a child to me in that moment. And so I held my arms out to him, and he came and laid down in my arms, and I held him like a baby. And I just felt my love. I felt so much love for him in that moment, like so
Hmm.
much warmth. And he fell asleep in my arms. And what was so interesting is he was an insomniac. He'd been complaining the whole week that he couldn't sleep. And he just fell dead asleep, like went completely boneless. I was pinned. And at the end of it, when he woke up and we were all talking about it, I explained my experience. And he said, and I was the first recipient of that love, and I felt it wash all over me.
Wow.
And that was the moment from that there's like pre me and there's post me, and that's the moment. And it was transformational to all of my relationships, Lisa, all of them. With my husband, with my children, with my parents, with my friends, with my coworkers, all of them.
Wow. Okay, that is big.
Hmm.
That is so big. And so feeling grief and rage and then feeling held and comforted
Yeah,
all in that short space of time that made you feel stronger when it
yeah,
comes to facing heartbreak or failure or anything.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And just letting my
Okay.
heart break open instead of zipping myself up.
Because you know you'll be okay. You'll be safe. You'll be comforted
You'll
if
be
that
able to love
happens.
that much more. I'd rather feel the full extent of love and heartbreak than
Yeah.
resist it and then not really get to experience it.
Oh, that is so good. We had a guest on our podcast, Sabina Nawaz, who
Hmm.
her phrase is pressure corrupts your options and power divides you from the impact and consequences of your choices.
Huh.
And so I love this idea of when we can open ourselves up to heartbreak and emotion, it actually shrinks the way in which we're divided, it shrinks that space between us and others.
Totally.
So,
Absolutely.
oh,
It's interesting that you say that because one of the outcomes has been I feel connected to everyone and everything.
okay. All right. I love that. I see that. I see that as the most improved player moniker. What what does it mean for you when I say the phrase "most improved player"? What does that mean?
Yeah, so something's coming up for me, and I feel it's important to say it. There's a part of me that's like, okay, we have to be careful because improvement might imply to some people that there's something to fix.
Ah, okay.
And I would say, first of all, we're all born perfect. There is nothing to fix. You've done nothing wrong.
Mm.
Um, but I like this notion of improvement being rooted in our wants and desires.
Mm.
And so if you are wanting to see an aspect of your life improved, that you can do it. So whether that's learning a new skill, whether that's getting better in your job, whether that's a certain relationship, that you can make a decision. There's agency in that, and you can actually get better at it. And that's extremely fulfilling.
I love that. That's a great ad, which is there's something you want. There's something that you want to grow stronger in, or some growth that you're looking forward to. You can set that and then reward yourself as you see that growth happen.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing. Yes, you're right. We're not broken. We don't have
Yeah.
to improve ourselves, but there are things that we want that we can make a practice of rewarding ourselves when we attain an improvement or a growth
Yeah.
area. Can you share a story from your life or career where you feel like you earned that? Maybe let's go back to some of your corporate life days in terms of getting that most improved title, and was that growth visible to you or others?
Yeah. I think every C-level job I did, I was scaling up in terms of my capabilities and my authenticity with each one. So whether that was at Dell or Rackspace or NI or ultimately IBM, and each one I hit a new inflection point where I was leaning more and more into my authenticity and more into my confidence and capability as a leader, and it showed in the results. And that was because the work that we just spoke of in terms of connection to self and connection to emotions. Um, but in each one, the business outcomes were even greater. So, if I think about my time at Dell, it was like, okay, great. I'm coming into my own as a leader and I know how to grow a business, or I know how to modernize a business.
Mhm.
At Rackspace, it's like, okay, I can go into a burning building. I can get everybody on the same page. We can get aligned on what we're trying to achieve, and then we can actually achieve it, which was getting the company sold. Um, when I came to NI, it was like a complete and total remod and modernization of the company. And it was this fantastic company that had differentiated itself and disrupted an industry 40 years before,
Mhm.
but had seen very little change since. But instead of considering it a rebrand and doing it by myself, I did it with my peers and we did it together as a team. So the CEO, the head of sales, the head of HR, the head of R&D or product, we all did it together.
Huh.
And at the end of that process, we loved one another. Like we actually told each other we loved one another. And the business had astronomical growth. So the company was shrinking when I got there, -7%, and then was +30 when I left. And then at IBM, same thing. So, the company hit their first growth quarter in 10 years. And so it was like it with each one, I felt like I was becoming more and more emboldened. Now I want to say not all of that was perfect. Like I don't want to paint this overly romantic picture. Part of where I am in my career, my life right now is because I've seen very significant failure and I've learned so much from it. I embrace it. But I will say with each one of those, I could see how I was becoming better as a leader, as a person.
Well, and Carla, I just have to take a moment. I just have to take a pause. When you're describing these things, like you live in a very rarefied opportunity area, which is you're a woman in tech in the C-suite, right? That is like when you think of the probabilities of getting there, and so many of our listeners have aspirations to be in the C-suite or aspirate, like, first of all, I just got to say, like, I'm in awe of that, right? Like, like the Venn diagram of tech, Fortune 100, C-suite. and being a woman like that. I just got to take a pause. Like that is, I'm going to say that is an MVP moment that you've described as an improvement thing. If you think about being in that, really, it's such an awesome place that you sit in this intersection of, what would you say allowed you to grow? Like, what are the things, what were the ingredients for success of allowing that to happen?
Well, first of all, thank you for that generous compliment. And Lisa, we see in others what we have ourselves. So I see you. So nice, nicely done. Um, so what allowed me? I mean, I've been bold my whole life. I think there's a portion of it that's innate.
Mm.
I've always wanted to solve problems. I've been unafraid of solving problems and putting myself out there. So I think there's a part of it that I can't control, to be perfectly honest. But there's also this other part of the more I let me out, the better I got. And so there was a time, if you would have met me 8 years ago, there is no way my hair would look like this. I didn't have a hair out of place. I had my contact lenses in. I had a fresh manicure. I had full face of makeup. I was, wearing the sheath dress that was tailored within a centimeter of my life. I was the model of what I thought a corporate executive was supposed to be. Now, here I am in my ripped jeans and my wrinkled denim shirt, and I've just unleashed myself. I'm not trying to fit a mold anymore. And what I've found is the more myself that I am, the more it attracts people that I love.
Okay. Well, you're looking at a former McKinsey consultant who recovered after what? I was there 11 years. So
Wow.
I know that sheet dress. And for over a decade now, I've just gotten to be myself too. Uh,
Good for
do
you.
you think that's really possible in this day and age? Because again, you sit in a rarefied group of people who've made it to the top. Like, is that really possible at a big company?
Oh God. Okay, so I'm going to say something that's probably very provocative. Not only is it possible, it is mandatory and essential in these times, or nothing is going to change.
Whew, okay. You just blew my mind. Say more about that.
We are where we are today as a planet because of the way that we've been doing things, and it's not working anymore.
Mm.
So if this podcast does anything at all, Lisa, I hope it emboldens and unleashes people to be their true selves
Okay. I love
because
that.
we need that.
That's the only way things will move forward. My mom always says, nothing can hurt me anymore. I've seen it all, done it all. I've made more mistakes than you. And she's just fully her authentic self,
I
like
love it.
unapologetically her. And I often think like that's the quality we most need in
Yeah.
our lives, because you're not afraid of failing and you're like, this is who I am and I bring a lot to the table. There's a self-awareness of that.
Yeah. How do you see your mom in that light, given that that's where she is at this stage? What do you think, Lisa?
Oh, well, I wrote, you write the book you most need to read yourself. So I wrote the book dedicated to my mom because
Mm,
one of the things we talk about is you cannot get credit for something you don't already see in yourself.
mm,
And so I love that the way you answered the last question was like, let's start off with the fact that like I know myself well and
mhm,
I already have an emboldened personality. So I
mhm.
bring that to the table. And it was just about getting out of my own way and unleashing something I already knew. So my mother is a really good role model for someone who just knows her own worthiness in this world
Yeah,
and walks through life making sure she helps people and she improves things around her, but she doesn't apologize for herself. I don't think I've never seen my mother apologize for who she is.
I love that. I also feel like it's important to say that I had people that really embraced me
Mm.
and my being myself, and I was rejected for it as well, Lisa.
Ah.
Um,
Can you talk about that? How were
yeah.
you rejected for it?
Well, I mean, I left my last company because I was rejected for it.
Mm.
And it was deeply personal and heartbreaking. And it kind of set me on this trajectory. It took me a while to figure out that it was not happening to me, but for me, and making space for me to fulfill my purpose. But
Mm.
I had somebody say to me, actually, it was a medium. I was on a silent retreat and I treated myself to a medium at the end of it and a reading. And she said to me, "You know what, Carla?" And not knowing who I was, I only gave her my first name. She said, "You want to go to the places where everybody says, 'Yay, Carla is here.'" not let's get her out of here. And it just made me realize, okay, yeah, there are going to be places where I'm rejected for this, and that's okay. But there are also places where I'm embraced for it. And there are people that really supported me in my boldness and the fact that I was different and my authenticity. And I'm grateful for those people.
I also wonder if your approach means that when you were rejected for it, you have a softer landing because you realize it's not necessarily you, it's that the environment that you were in wasn't built to see you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely held in it. I mean, the amount of letters and notes I got from employees and cards and flowers and bottles of tequila from people that I worked with 20 years prior. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was like being eulogized while being alive. It was one of the
Uh,
greatest gifts I received.
uh, what is it like when you have to step away from a role that you probably were incredibly passionate about when you started it? What's that like when you're like, okay, this is not for me and I'm going to get pushed out?
It was real heartbreak, real heartbreak. One, because I could see the opportunity and potential in it, and to not get to see it all the way through was tough.
Mm.
There was also ego involved, if I'm being really honest. And I went through a big dark night of the soul. Like I really, there was an identity loss in it. My career went up and to the right for 25 years until it didn't. And
Mm.
it was a shock to the system. It was a stripping away, if you will. And I had to figure out who I was without my corporate identity, you know?
And what did you do actually to discover yourself again?
I went on a very significant healing journey.
Mm.
It kicked off with a silent retreat. Um, that was 7 days. I tried every modality under the sun, from healers to cranial sacral therapists to acupuncturists, all sorts of body workers, including a hero's dose of mushrooms. Another silent retreat of 10 days. And it all brought me to this notion of, first of all, everything's going to be okay. It always is. And whatever's happening is what's intended. And we're all connected. We're all connected. And that I'm in service of humanity, not some title, not some company, not, you know, it wasn't about that validation anymore. It was about being of service.
I love that. And if someone is going through this, if someone's going through a similar situation where they're being rejected for they're becoming who they want to be and expressing that more and they're getting rejected for it and they can't go on a retreat or they can't go and take time for themselves, what are some of the things you would say they should think about doing?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I would say I've got you. If anyone wants to reach out, I've got you. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because there were so many people that reached out to me that I didn't even know that supported me in that moment. Shout out to Jan Singer, who's an incredible woman and was the former CEO of J. Crew. And she cold called me to offer me support, and her advice was epic. So if it happens to anyone, I've got you. Um, the stuff, it doesn't have to be expensive. So a silent retreat can happen by turning your phone off and doing a digital detox. Um, journaling is free. Getting your bare feet in grass is free. Going for a swim, being in nature, um, doing breath work and meditation. So these aren't things that are necessarily expensive, but giving yourself the space and time that you need to actually listen to that inner voice or connect to whatever it is that you need to connect to that's greater than yourself, that will reveal anything that you need to know in that moment.
And I love this. Having been fired myself and whatnot, I often say, there's this weird duality of that moment. On the one hand, you have to get really quiet and really take that moment to reflect and pause because we're all on these up into the right trajectories and say, what is it? What really matters to me? So there's this inner part. And then what you said about people reaching out to you, there was the second part for me that I had to discover for myself is just there's amount that you go inside, but then you can't be afraid to go outside
Yeah.
and reconnect with people. I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. And then I realized actually being able to connect with other people is what got me out of the darkness,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to be like, this sucked.
Yeah.
And the person going is like, been there too. The amount of people that said to me, been there too, made me feel so much better.
Totally. I wish I could have been there for you in that moment. I had a friend say something to me that was very powerful. She's a high-powered public company CEO, and when I told her what was going on, she said, "Come to me."
Mm.
And I did not want to bother her. I didn't want to distract. I didn't want to ask for anything. I'm a giver. And she said to me, "Oh, Carla, you know that you're giving me a gift in this too, right? Because we all just want to be wanted and needed." And she
Oh,
said, "So you're letting me be wanted and needed by telling me that you need help."
yeah.
And so that was really powerful for me. And she said, "This is actually building intimacy in our friendship."
That's just true. This is true. And what's fascinating to me is I think we make up singular stories in our heads about other people.
Absolutely.
And the more high profile, the more high power they are. Like I've had a lot of examples of like former clients from my McKinsey days where I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. And then you reconnect with them, like, let me tell you what was really going on.
Oh, totally.
And that shared intimacy, all of a sudden, these are people now that I feel comfortable texting. When before there was almost like a wall because I made up a story. They're so busy. They're the CEO of a publicly traded company. Why would they care about me?
Yeah.
That's actually a really great point.
Yeah, again, we're back to when you're vulnerable, you're giving space for other people to meet you where you are and to share their vulnerability.
How do you help your friends, the folks you're coaching, your colleagues, your teams recognize their own growth, especially when it's incremental or easy to miss?
Yeah. Um, I am a bit of a hype woman. I love to randomly call people and tell them what I'm seeing. I have a girlfriend. I'll tell you a story, Lisa. I have a girlfriend who we started our corporate careers together. Day one, we met of training at Dell, and then she decided to open her own clothing boutique and pursue kind of her passion of fashion. And I went the corporate route. And there were hard years in there. I mean, there was the economic downturn in 2008, there was COVID, there were a lot of punches that she had to roll with. And and we've been along each other's side every step of the way as friends. And there were moments where she'd be like, "Damn, I should have just stayed in the corporate world. I'd be where you are right now, I'd be so successful, blah, blah, blah." And there was a moment very recently where I made the realization that the company that she has built in valuation has lapped my personal net worth. And I made it a point to show her the numbers. And I just need you to see something, because you have been holding me on this pedestal thinking that I quote unquote made it. And you have lapped me, my friend, and you are still growing. And so she's built a phenomenal business, and I just had to show it to her. She wasn't seeing it.
I love that example because, as someone who also is in the fashion business, I have a friend who always tells me, COVID wasn't your fault. You don't have to feel responsible for COVID. Just to be clear, your entire category went to zero overnight and
Yeah,
everyone wanted a refund.
yeah,
So let's be clear, it's not your fault. And you are so much stronger today than you were pre-COVID. Like your business has been set up to be stronger. What you thought was going to happen didn't happen. It actually is better for you that this is the way
absolutely.
it played out.
Absolutely. And we had some scary moments, like crying together side by side in the car, like, "Oh shit, what's going to happen?" But yeah, to your point, she's stronger for it.
And I love this story because we saw on, I think it was a LinkedIn post and on your podcast, you said something which is there's no such thing as work versus life. You are alive wherever you go.
Yeah.
And I loved this quote. Can you explain more about what I mean? Because it's exactly what you just did. You're like, it's not someone I worked with, but it's somebody that is in my circle. And I applied the same types of things that I do with folks that I coach.
Yeah. So, yeah, this one was wild. It hit me. I'll tell you when it hit me, but I'll start first by saying what I mean by it. So, this whole notion of work-life balance is total bullshit.
Mm.
Like as if there are two separate things. And, you're alive the whole way through. And where it really started to become apparent to me was I was at a friend's birthday. He invited us to travel for it. And so we went abroad for it. And I noticed that at his birthday party, he had invited his father, his high school soccer coach, his children, the Bain executive that was working on a project with him, his favorite long-term employee. I mean, it was such a hodgepodge, and it was us. And then during the weekend, I observed him moving in and out of work. So it was like we were at an art museum and his girls would show up and he would kiss the girls and bring them into the museum. And then he'd step out for a second because he had to take a call with the Bang guy. And then we were off to dinner. And I was like, oh my God, he's just living. Like it's totally
Mm,
fluid. He is just following his enjoyment. He's just
mm,
doing what he wants to do all the way through. And that was a big unlock for me. That was when I was like, oh, yes, this is what it's about. We create these weird constructs and constrain ourselves to like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, lunch
mm,
at noon, 30-minute 1 hour meetings. Like those are all, that's not reality. Like
mm,
I just want to blow through that and just say, no, you can design whatever it is that you want to design in all of
mm.
life.
Got it. And does that risk not having boundaries though? Like in terms of the blurring of that?
So it's so interesting, and I'm so glad that you're asking this. If you are operating from a place of wants and your boundaries, then no.
Hey, I feel better now as an entrepreneur that I'm always like, I'm going to take that call
Yeah.
with our overseas team at 10 p.m. tonight.
I mean, if it's about your enjoyment,
It
if you
is.
want to do
Yes.
it, then do it. If you don't want to
Yeah.
do it, don't do it. But, and then I began to mix my life. So I started to work out with people that I worked with to get my workouts in, and and people knew that they could get on my calendar if they went on a hike with me. And I just, I started to mix the two.
Yeah. As you think about leadership and folks who are in lots of different environments, and we've kind of given you this construct, and I'm glad you reframed it as if there's something you want and you want to improve on, we can all recognize you for it, or you can reward yourself for it. When you think about organizations that you work with that are successful, what's the balance in terms of reward and praise? Because I was, the way I was raised, and I'm 45, it was truly about the most valuable player, right? Only one person can win the trophy. As I think about how the workplace is shifting, do you see more of a balance towards rewarding growth and redemption and allowing failure and people to like grow and learn over you hit the sales goal, you were the top performer this month? Do you see that shift happening in the workplace?
Yeah, I was deeply impacted. I saw Alan Mulally speak several years ago. It was like over 10 years ago. And he was the former CEO of Ford.
Mm.
And he talked about coming in to Ford and all the dashboards being in green, even though the company was losing millions of dollars a month and billions of dollars a year. And he was like, okay, this is so odd. And then the first time somebody put red on a dashboard, he stood up and applauded them.
Ah,
And so I love this notion of creating safety where you actually recognize and reward failures. And at Rackspace in particular, we had this really funny practice, which I just thought was so lovely, that two people in the organization came up with, and they had worked for a um, a Spanish periodical, and it was just the two of them in the office. And in order to keep each other boosted, they created their own little thing called Celebramos, like let's celebrate. And they would like create little things that they would celebrate every week. Well, once they started working at Rackspace, they brought it to me and they're like, "Can we do this formally?" And so what we did is every month we would have a Celebramos session where we would huddle for an hour in a conference room, and those that were globally would come on Zoom, and people would submit all month long the things that they wanted to celebrate um, to an email alias, and then we would read them rapid fire in this monthly meeting. And it was so friggin' hilarious the stuff people would submit. It'd be like Celebramos this guy and his nasty green juice that he drinks every morning. Celebramos so-and-so, her llama just gave birth. Celebramos, but then it would also be like someone that fixed something in the business or someone that did something embarrassing. And it was like, let's just celebrate. And it was so quirky and funny, and I loved it.
Oh my gosh, I think everyone needs a Celebramos practice.
Yeah,
Like it just
yeah, it was so quirky and weird, and it was great. And it was very much the Rackspace culture.
Oh, that's really cool because often find when people sit inside regret, they it's hard. And what I love that the red dashboard or the Celebramos is it allows people to have redemption, growth, to not beat themselves up at night when they get home from work. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna Celebramos some things today. Is there
Yeah.
anything? I recovered from a red eye flight yesterday.
Oh,
Yay,
celebramos
go
that.
me. Yeah, Celebramos that. Uh, you know, when you look ahead, what's the next most improved player award you'd like to win for yourself?
I want to get better at wake surfing.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's so tangible. This is possible. Yes.
You were expecting something very
No,
small.
no, this is the whole point about most improved player award. It can be any Celebramos. Okay.
So I am typically the boat driver, and so I haven't really been in the water as much. And I can get up, but I'm in my head right now and I can't let go of the rope. And I want to be a badass wake surfer. My whole family is really good at it, and I want to get better at it.
Done. So the next time I see you, you're
Yeah.
going to show me a video of you standing up for a period of time on
Yeah.
your wakeboard. Okay.
Yeah. Ideally
Yes.
carving.
Okay, onto it. I'm into it, and I love that that's your next one because that's the thing where you're like never going to be the best wake surfer.
No.
That's why I love that. That's what you want to do
Yeah.
is because only you can measure that. There's no measuring stick for whether or not you've gotten better. It's whether or not you feel better about doing it.
I'm so glad you said that, Lisa, because I am not really great at anything. I am the queen of like jack of all trades, master of none. Um, so this notion of improvement is something that's driven me my whole life because I've had to try hard at
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And I think what the requirement of doing this is you have to take the measuring stick and put it down in
Mm,
order to do this exercise well, right? Most improved player is really you're benchmarking against yourself.
right.
And that's what I think this exercise we're trying to get people to do this week is the benchmark is you. And so you get to decide how you want to improve, what you want to do, give yourself credit for something that maybe externally isn't something that would be validated, right? It's your own measuring stick. You get to put down the one that's been placed on you your whole life. Well, I will share with you mine
Yeah.
because I am going to, over the next 2 years, try out for the Olympics.
What?
Now, I might not make it, and that's okay because like you, I need a hobby. Like I actually realized that like I have no hobbies. And I'm curiously good at like pistol shooting. And that Turkish man who was in the Olympics last year, he's like a 51-year-old man. I don't need a medal. He got a silver medal. I don't need a medal. But I was just Googling. I was like, I'm really good at this. And maybe I won't make it. Maybe I won't make the team. But it'd be fun to know what it would take and just to like go practice it. So again, I was more for me. It's not actually external validation. I was more like, it'd be fun to just try it. Like, all you can do is try. Because you shared yours. I was like, I'm going to try out to be on the pistol shooting team.
I am so inspired. Will you please keep me posted?
I will. Well, first I got to get a handgun license. There's like a lot of steps. I
Sure.
already used AI. ChatGPT gave me the 22-step plan,
Okay.
like including I have to go and score a point in ISIC regulated competition and, all these things. So,
Why do I feel like this is actually going to happen?
oh, I always tell my team when we say things out loud, they typically happen. They
Yeah.
don't actually happen exactly the way we think they will,
No.
but they do eventually happen.
For
So,
sure. Yeah.
you will send me wake surfing videos, and
Yeah.
I will send you photos of my shooting range
I love it.
outcomes.
I love it. Awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on In Confidence, Carla. I'm so happy to now know you and be in each other's orbits.
It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to continuing to get to know you and supporting you in any way, shape, or form.
Yay. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Carla today. I hope you're leaving the space stronger than the way you came into it. What stood out most in my conversation with Carla was about that, she really leads boldly with her heart. She's unafraid to say things out loud, especially things that most leaders wouldn't admit or they'd want to hide. When she names fear, she creates safety. When she leads with love, she creates connection. And when she steps fully into herself, she gives permission for others to do the same. That's why our micro moment this week is Most Improved Player. Not because you're broken, but because you get to choose where and what you want to grow. I love her addition to our formula. Specifically, choose something you want. So I want to get better at this, or I want this in my life. Take one rep. Do it again. Even a small action is enough. And as you do it over and over again, reflect and capture that shift. How did it feel before, and how does it feel now? Because you can celebrate the fact that you've grown stronger, where you've improved on something you've wanted. I love Carla's phrase, celebramos. You can celebrate with a friend, with your team, or just say it out loud to yourself. Because when we think about Most Improved Player, this is improvement defined on your terms. And you get to put down the yardstick of everyone else's expectations, how you've grown stronger, how you've progressed, and giving yourself credit for that. I love this conversation because Carla is the kind of leader who makes people braver simply by telling the truth. We'll link her podcast in the show notes if you want to go deeper. And now it's your turn. This week, what is your Most Improved Player moment? I want you to share it with us on social media at Gravitas New York, or with me at Lisa L. Sun. And I hope you'll subscribe to our podcast so you never miss a moment of inspiration, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear this today. Until next time, in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence.